Hi, I'm Amy, Head of Learning and Development and Support at Trajan.
Just to go back to the skills, guys, remember one thing, that if you want to be accredited for any training that you receive, the person that does the training not always need to be accredited, but you can get accreditation for the time that you've spent in that, as long as they give you a certificate or you are certified by what at the end of the training. And that is what we want to do. We are working towards that accreditation with the CETA, where the full accreditation, of course, is given. But in the meanwhile, every time that we do specific training for you and you want us to render you a certificate, that can be arranged. But our main objective here is to ensure that the training that we do is the training that you need. That is priority number one for us. We want to train you guys in the space that you think that you need training. And why are we always hammering on the same thing so many times? Like, for instance, we're talking about the credit policy again today. And you know what? I actually want to take the word credit out there and say company credit policy or something like that, because it's not a credit policy. The minute you say credit policy, everybody associates it as a policy done by the credit department. And I know in the training material today we are going to discuss that, but it is fundamental to understand that the credit policy of a company is a company document, and it's a live document, and it is driving the company, everybody inside the company's behavior. If it doesn't drive the behavior, take it, throw it in the dustbin, because it's worth nothing. Mustn't be there as something just to tease the auditors. Living document. All right, so let me go to share the document.
And while Martin is pulling that up, you'll see that that poll is now on your screen for you to have a look at. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead and completing that for us, we would appreciate it. So lots of things we're asking of you today. For those who are on the call, we're asking you to fill out our NPS. We're asking you to join in with some information around what we want to do for the future. And we really value those who join us in your input. I do want to say, while we're waiting for Martin to present as well, when you do your registration with us going forward for all registration events, we will be collecting certain information for this specific reason around skills development and what we can provide back to your teams as well, so they can potentially claim back on their taxes and utilize that money internally. So I'll let you have it, Martin.
Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you for the opportunity to present again today. Guys, if you don't know me, you will never know me. Martin Petzer is my name. I am a credit executive at Trade Shield. Trade Shield for quite some time, but I've been in the credit fraternity for many years. And the one thing that I always say to people when we start talking credit is start at the beginning. Whatever it is, when you look at credit, what drives your business? When we talk about the credit policy, for instance, if it is something that you've created and you've shelved it and it's lying there gathering dust, it's not worth the paper it's written. You've got to live by it. You've got to make that policy live. And, you know, there's going to be some times where what is written in the policy is going to challenge certain of your decisions. So you want to grant credit, and the policy says this is not how you do it. And that is when you as a company need to make a decision as to when you do you give credit to that specific entity based on what you have seen or experienced, right? This morning we had a long discussion about financial statements and stuff like that. And cross-company guarantees, and how important these things are, and that they're not always visible to everybody, but they still drive decisioning. And when would you start doing things like that, getting securities and all of that? Now, all of those things captured in your credit policy. Because if it's not in your policy, it's not going to drive behavior. And if you don't drive behavior, guess what's going to happen? All right. So, without any further ado, what we're covering today, what a credit policy is and why it matters, key components of a strong practical policy, how policy guides better, faster, more consistent decisioning, aligning policies with strategy and risk appetite, which is crucial in your credit policy. And of course, common gaps and mistakes in the policy. And if you identify a gap now, don't wait for review at the end of the year when you review your policy, fix it. And practical examples of getting buy-in to apply it. All right. What is the credit policy? We're all going to talk about that now. And guys, please remember, if you have a question at any point in time, raise the hand, pop it in the questions and answer section. I've got Amy there, and she will, and I think Neil's also somewhere on the line. They'll talk to me and we will answer your question immediately. All right, what a credit policy actually is. Translation of risk appetite into decisions, protection from ad hoc risk taking, and a whole business document. And we look at it from where it starts. And it says translation of risk appetite into decision. A policy takes your actual risk appetite and it relates it into your how risk afraid are you? How much risk are you prepared to take? And of course, that risk that you are prepared to take will be driven by your margin. How much markup do you have on your product? How much profit do you make at the end of the day on your product? And the risk that you take will drive that decision. Now, credit control doesn't always necessarily understand or know the margin. So they don't always know how much risk are you prepared to take. And that's why whatever you write in your policy, whatever you capture in your policy, must be to guide whoever reads the document as to how you are prepared to take risk. Are you very conservative in your risk-taking process, or are you very aggressive in your risk-taking process? And then all of the other things in between page 1 and 50, depending on how you want to put that. All right. Protection from ad hoc risk-taking. Without it, every limit decisioning made fresh under pressure by whatever happens in the room. You know, I started at a company years ago and I asked, can I see the credit application? And I said, well, we don't have one. I said, okay, well, how do you decide how to open an account? No, the sales guy brings in a contract, the sales contract, the service level agreement, which is fair. And based on that, the salesman will make a presentation and tell us what he saw, and then we will make a decision whether or not we're going to grant credit. I went ice cold when I saw that. Then I realized there's no credit application, there's no credit policy. With other words, decisions are made willy-nilly and wild. Can you imagine in today's economic climate, a business letting loose a bunch of sales guys to decide whether or not they want to grant credit based on a service level agreement and what they saw? So they come back and they've seen a Porsche parked in the parking lot, and the guy's wife drives a Ferrari, and they say, wow, this guy has money. Let's give him as much credit as he wants. You are going to get problems. And of course, the whole business document, sales, finance, operations, credit, every single body, every person has to have input. If I say person, I'm talking about department, not as much in the individuals in the department to the department to the policy. And of course, if the company changes the way they do business, the policy must be adapted accordingly. And the risk must be changed, or the way you measure risk must be adapted accordingly. Every time you move into a new field, or every time you start doing sales to a different category of people, your sales or your credit policy should be adapted to that. In other words, you've got a company over here with a strategy and a certain risk margin, and you've got a policy over here that must mirror that and be driven by the strategy and how the company wants to do business. Because it doesn't help you start a company and you've got someone over here that has written the credit policy, and you've got someone over here that's got a strategy, and you've got someone here over here that lives in the business and do what they want. They don't understand either of the two, and then you've got some serious issues and some serious problems somewhere along the line. What is a credit policy? Actually, okay, it's transactions of risk appetite into decisions. The policy takes abstract appetite. We have done this part, sorry. This next part. Remove decision fatigue. You know, if it is that there is a structured way in which your company drives decisioning, nobody sits and wonders what's going to happen. They all know. They all know that this is what we as, if you are very conservative, they understand. If you are very aggressive, they understand. They know the parameters. It's not to say, okay, we've got this company that wants credit from us, and this is who they are, and that's what they've done. We will know because the policy will guide us. Speed and onboarding, because if you have it in your policy as to what is needed to onboard a new client, there's no questions asked. Do you want a credit application that's fully completed and signed with no T's and C's crossed out? That's the company decision inside the credit policy. That's not someone that thumbsucked it. The problem that you're going to have with that immediately is when you get to public companies and it says, will you sign personal surety, and you've got a personal surety clause in it, you're going to have problems because they will draw a line through that. So you've got to be accommodating somewhere along the line, but it needs to be an open document that decisioning is allowed and changes according to the policy also allowed. Excuse me. Great consistency across the team. What do you think is one of the most important things in any business? Stability and consistency. Stable decision making and constantly doing it the same way. Everybody knows how it's done. Everybody understands how it's done. There are no questions. Who needs to do? Everybody knows the levels of authority. We're going to get there just now. But everybody understands that. And it is very, very important that all of these things should be captured. Now, we're going to talk about maybe the basics of a credit policy. But different companies, different industries will have different things captured inside their policy. Liquor industry, for instance. You cannot trade with someone that doesn't have a liquor license. Finish and clear. That's it. That should be the first thing in their policy. Give a defensible document position. When you have a credit policy, everybody knows what it says. And it says, what does the policy say? So if your sales guy comes and says, this is what I want to do, and you say, what does the company credit policy say about what you want to do? If it is contradictory to the policy, or if it is such a good argument that the salesperson brings to you, or whatever it is what do we need to do to the policy to ensure that we accommodate should we face these challenges again in the future? I have asked a few times already in the last couple of years when I reviewed company credit policies, when last have you reviewed your policy? Of course, the scariest answer, of course, is never. Then the second scariest one is I can't remember. Or not ever since I've been here. And how long have you been here? 25 years. It's scary answers because a policy should be reviewed on a regular basis. Key components of a strong policy. Credit evaluation. How do we evaluate credit? Even if it's done by TradeShield, the guidelines that you have inside your policy should be in TradeShield. When do you make a decision? On what do you make a decision? To what value? Who signs it off? All these things captured in your policy. Credit terms and limit. I spoke about it just now, about the terms. Your terms are determined by your margin. You can't give long terms if you've got a small margin. All right? And your credit limits. What kind of credit limits do you give? At what level? At what time? Depending on the risk that you see and how much risk you see. Collection processes and procedures. If you don't have a process or a procedure, it's very hard time that you get one. In that part of the credit policy where there's collection procedures, you need to have a roadmap or a map of how your client operates. All right? What do they need from you, by when and how, to enable them to pay your invoice? That should be captured and it should be mapped, and everybody should understand that process map. And it should be documented. So if Martin, the credit controller, leaves and Amy, the new credit controller, walks in, all she does is she takes that file out and she opens it and says, how does TradeShield Pty Limited trade with us? What do they need from us to enable collections to go on? Ongoing monitoring. How does that happen? Cash flow links, cash flow forecasting. How is it done? How regular is it done? How important is it? The company that I worked with before was in the labor broking industry. Very large. In other words, they have got cash flowing out by the millions before the cash starts coming in. So cash flow forecasting is critical in their business. Is it critical in your business? Is it documented in your credit policy about cash flow forecasting? Levels of authority. Who needs to sign this limit for R1 million or 2 million rand or 5 million rand? It's captured in your policy. Everybody knows. It mustn't be linked to a name. It's be linked to a position. In other words, the CFO, the financial manager, the CEO, the board of directors, whatever it is, the value that you're looking at must be captured inside your credit policy. Clear, distinct lines of authority, roles and accountability. Who needs to do what at what time? And who's accountable? Who's responsible and who's accountable? Two different things. And then sector-specific terms. Is there something specific for specific types of companies that in the past years gone by, I know companies to say, if it's a public company, give them as much credit as they ask for. I won't necessarily do that. Because some of these public companies are very risky. And you need to take note of that, depending on the industry that they're in and depending on the current economic climate that we find ourselves in. So these things here that we've just spoken about should be a skeleton on which you build your credit policy. Credit evaluation, credit terms and limit, collection procedures, ongoing monitoring, cash flow links, levels of authority, roles and accountability, sector specific. Just going back to ongoing monitoring. Your sales team plays a very critical role in the ongoing monitoring because they visit the client. They see changes happening. They see your product not being so visible anymore in the client's environment. There's other competitors' products that's more visible than yours. I'm just using an example. What is going on? Are they diverting from your product to another product? Who knows? Immediately, your pricing needs to maybe change or something. You need to make an adaptation. All right. What is the next step? Really problem. Why a policy left alone quietly stops work? If it's left alone, it actually never worked. The calendar review. If you say, I am only going to review my policy once a year, you are setting yourself up for problems. There should be triggers that actually triggers you as a business to review your policy. Shift in default rate, a new sector in your country, or a change in funding costs. What do I mean by change in funding costs? In other words, the interest rate climbs dramatically, or if you import your product, the foreign exchange is so bad that your product prices are increasing, your margins are decreasing. All of these things to drive a review in your credit policy. Of course, I said it's a group, it's a company policy. It's not a credit department policy. How the business is driven in making credit decisions, selling goods, rendering service on terms. All right. Who renders the service? Who delivers the product? At what time? At what cost? When do we get paid? What are the terms? What are the margins? All of these things are going to play a role in this. And these triggers are going to play a role in when they trigger you to do something else. Common gaps and mistakes in the policy design. Design time mistakes. Build as compliance checkbox. You are required to have a credit policy. If you have a credit policy, here it is. I filed it. If anyone wants to know, there's my credit policy. It's going to bite you. Drafted by credit alone. Serious mistake. Why? Because you're going to have people to say it is their policy. Credit has made the decision. And you know what you're going to create immediately? I always talk about the us and them scenario. I wrote a little thing about it in LinkedIn recently. You can go and read up on it in LinkedIn. It's that one journey. And credit and sales are so close to one another that your client finds difficulty in differentiating which one is which one. And if it's drafted by credit, you are going to drive that wedge in there and they're going to separate. Because sales is going to say, it all depends on whether credit is going to give you credit or not. Or it's credit control that decided not to give you your credit limit that you asked for. No. We decided as a company that right now we are going to give you only 80,000 of the 200,000 that you requested. However, we're going to review it in 3 months' time. And if you consistently pay on time and you accommodate the rule and pay us according to the credit limit and according to your terms, we will review the limit and then we will increase the limit. Be open with your clients and talk about we and not about us and them. That's what this will create and cause. Decay signals over time. Limits set by a feel, not by data. It is a dangerous place to find yourself in. And we've gone through such a major shift in credit control in the way we used to assess risk in the past and how we assess risk today. I mean, I still see people talking about you must get 3 trade references and get a bank code, and those things are scary to me because they have lost so much value. People don't give realistic trade references anymore unless you know the person very well on the other side, or unless they are in such a way that they give you an honest trade reference. Bank codes, most of the banks don't even give codes anymore. But those who do, remember a bank code is a bank clerk's opinion of what he sees. But if you monitor, I'm not trying to sell you TradeShield if you're not a TradeShield subscriber, for those of us who are our guests, but I will sell you TradeShield in any case. But there we do something completely different because we monitor people's behavior. We monitor consistent behavior and we predict according to behavior and what we've analyzed for a very, very long period and over a very long period. And those kind of things tells us a different story. We must adapt to the realities of today when we assess risk. Exceptions have become the real policy. I've spoken about it just now. Sales guys come in and they constantly want to challenge the company credit policy. Why? Because they want to make the sale. Because it's driving money in their pocket. Terms frozen while DSO has drifted. That is a mouthful. That's an absolute mouthful that I just said. When there's certain factors changing rapidly in your company, the policy needs to be reviewed. Huh? To a good DSO could also mean something. It could mean that you're not prepared to take a lot of risk. And the companies that you're trading with are all these, only the companies that pays exceptionally well or pay before the time. But once again, it's driven by your margin. How much risk are you prepared to take? Because if you do take risk, some of these guys are going to pay you a couple of days late. But it's then monitoring that behavior that's going to tell you a different story. That's going to give you the ammunition to adjust and adapt your policy according to what you see. But if you don't know the behavior, if you don't have the data, you can't adjust the policy according to what you see and what you experience. Experience doesn't mean at month end you get your results and you look at the DSO and you say, oh, what the hell happened? Yeah, our DSO has gone up by 10 days and you've got absolutely no data to tell you why. But if you have the data, you can explain the data and you can analyze the data. It can give you an opportunity to adapt and change your policy. Make sure that you go to the next step. From data to decisions. Segment the book. And of course, compare terms to DSO, flag loose limits, and flag tight limits. If you've got a very large status ledger and you trade with people across the spectrum, in other words, from the small sole proprietor, the SME, to the medium type of business, to the blue chip, segment your book. Break it up into different categories and be specific in your policy as to how you treat each one of these segments and how you look at it. Not one rule fits all, how you look at each one of these pockets individually. Look at the terms that you grant. But remember, the terms are driven by your margin. So if you've got small margin, it doesn't matter who you're trading with. Remember what I always say, these big blue chips, they take longer to pay in most instances than the small SME and the small business, because the small business needs to protect their, what is the word, reputation out there in the market. And they'll pay on time. Why? Because if they don't, they're not going to get credit. But that big blue chip, they use you as their bank. They use you for their finance. And of course, they will play with you if you do not keep them to the rule, keep them to your credit policy, and run your business by your policy. And if it needs to be adapted to accommodate those guys, then do that. Flag loose limits, flag tight limits. Where are you too loose on your credit limit? Who is abusing the credit limit? And then if the credit limit is too tight and the guys can't trade, you constantly have to get payment up front before you release the next order. Whatever it is, you've got to manage the credit limit according to the client that you trade with. If you don't understand the client you trade with, how are you going to manage the credit limit? Very critical and of course, very important. One segment, recalibrate. Okay. What you're looking at here is an example of how you can adapt or change certain categories inside your policy depending on how you've been trading with the guy. And we've just spoke about it. Is your credit limit too loose? In other words, have you given the guy too much credit and they never utilize it? Reduce the credit limit. Because you might not know that something is going on the other side, and all of a sudden they come and they buy that credit limit in full because nobody was forced to review it. But if the credit limit is very close to their actual activity, then if they want to buy more, of course, you will have to reassess it. And you will pick up if anything has changed if you do not use TradeShield. Of course, TradeShield will tell you if there's a deviation in their behavior. If they buy and they pay you at a specific time every single month and it's beyond your terms, do you need to readjust your terms? But that's what I said in the beginning and what I always say. When your sales guys goes out to go and see some of these big clients, and it is that you have got the risk appetite and you have the margin to accommodate it, understand their process from the beginning and map it and say, and ask yourself the question, if I trade with this client in the way they're expecting me to trade with them, will I be paid? Will my invoices be with Treasury to be paid at the time that they close their accounts payable on their side? Right? Are they going to pay you on time? If it's not, do I need to adjust my terms with them? Or am I now going to force the rule and say, you're going to pay me on 30 days and maybe lose the client? Or you're going to consistently sit with overdues in your ledger. The one important thing is that your policy and your activity must speak to one another and the same language. For instance, you say your terms are 30 days from date of invoice. Does your mainframe accommodate that? Does your mainframe roll your ledger roll every single day? Because that's what it says, date of invoice. Or is it date of statement and it rolls once a month? The two must speak to one another. If they don't, then one of the two must be reviewed, either the policy or the system. Talk to one another. Align policy and strategy and appetite. I've spoken about this. What is the company policy? Of the company strategy? Are we driving growth right now? Do we have the margin for this? Are we driving growth in a very specific area, in a very specific region, in a very specific province, or a very specific country, maybe outside the borders of South Africa? What is the strategy? And then the strategy must roll into the policy, and that drives behavior, but it all depends on the appetite. Of course, your appetite is being driven by the margin. If you don't have margin, please don't say we've got a huge risk appetite, because something is going to eat and it's not going to be you. Someone's going to eat your margin very, very quickly, and you're going to lose money. So a lot of people say, look at this company's turnover. They are humongous. You scroll down the bottom end of it and it says the net profit after all of these, and that's a negative figure. You say, but what's going on here? And you realize that the strategy is not aligned with the policy. They are not trading in line with the company's strategy. Company strategy is we're going to sell our product at a very small margin because we want people to buy our product. We don't want to make it too expensive. Then your terms must be shorter. You must drive harder to collect. All of these things should be then in your policy. And risk appetite. I can talk about the risk appetite for a day and two in my lifetime. But your risk appetite is driven by your margin. You can't have a huge risk appetite if you do not have the margin to go with it. So that's why I say All of these things should talk to one another. Someone knows the margin, someone knows the client, someone knows the appetite, someone knows the strategy, someone knows how to assess risk. Bring all of these together around one table and say, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to write our policy? Or how are we going to take the current policy that we have, review it and adapt it to make sure that our company is going to do as good as it possibly can in the economical climate that we currently live in. Find and implement, very important. Lead with data, not the recommendation. Frame it as protecting sales accounts. Phase the change, do not flip a switch. Get finance to co-sign in. And it's not just finance, it's everybody. All right. Lead with data. When you start making recommendations as to any change that you want to bring into your policy, support it with the data. Amy, I suggest we do not trade with Martin Fetzer Pty Limited anymore, because currently Martin Fetzer is paying us on 90 days. The margin is only 2.5%. By the time they pay us, that margin is gone. And I give Amy the right set of information as the sales director to make a decision as to whether or not she and her sales team wants to continue driving sales to Martin Fetzer Pty Limited, who is maybe giving us turnover, but not profit, not margin. And that's a dangerous place to find yourself in. Frame it as protecting sales accounts. However the policy is designed, it doesn't just protect sales, it protects the sales of the business. It protects our business. It protects the company. It protects the investment of the directors. It protects the investment of the shareholders. And if you're a company that gives you profit shares as a worker in the company, it protects that share as well. Phase the change, do not flip the switch. Whenever you start making changes to anything, years and years and years ago, when Paul Kruger was still playing scrum off for the Springboks, I worked for a company called Blakey Johnson. They were in the hardware industry. And they sent me to a specific region to go and clean up the credit. And the first thing that I saw is they were giving 90-day terms. And of course, their margin didn't allow for that, didn't cater for that. So I had to reduce the terms from 90 days to 30 days. I didn't walk in and say, tomorrow, all 6,000 accounts in this region will now be paying us on 30 days. Firstly, started with the new accounts. Say all new accounts will only get 30-day terms. Then slowly but surely phased it in as we went to see the clients and say, we are going to reduce your terms to 60 days. 2 months later, 6 months later, we are going to reduce your terms again to 30 days because that is our new company policy. Phase it in. And of course, you have to get buy-in from the whole company when you start making changes to something like that. As I said just now, otherwise you're going to have the us and them scenario. Oh no, credit control decided that our new terms will be 30 days. That's why we now come here. Oh, we're so sorry, Mr. Client, that you... No, we as a company, because of the margin that we're trading with you on, can no longer trade with you on 60 days. That's why we have now gone to 30 days. Unfortunately, if you can't accommodate 30 days, we have to up our price to get you to 60 days. And immediately now, you're in the new negotiations with the client. And sometimes you're going to have to walk away from certain clients. Otherwise, it's going to bite you. Practical review canvas. Quarterly data pooling. Annual full policy review. Now I say annual full policy review. Remember the triggers? Any one of those triggers happen, you review. You look at the policy and say, Have we maybe designed our policy too rigid? Have we maybe designed our policy too strict? Or have we given levels of authority to the wrong people or to the right people? Or should we adapt a little bit? Should we have more buy-in from the sales guys when we approve credit? Whatever. Trigger-based ad hoc review. Spoke about it. Sign-off and communication. So the company that I was talking about just now, once I've sat down with everybody and had everyone's input and I had the credit policy designed and written, I then went and I sat down with all the CEOs of all the companies and I said to them, there's the credit policy. Look at it and see if it fits your business, because it was very diverse. Although they were in the same industry, they were very diverse. And they all had a look at it. And I said, is there anything that you think should be changed? Wanting their buy-in, wanting their input. And this is what this is all about. Constantly having input and adjusting and reassessing. And once I had all of the input and everybody was happy, everybody signed it off and said, we agree. And then it was implemented as the company credit policy. And now it drives behavior. So anybody who new started in the business, the first thing they received was the company credit policy and said, this is the way we as a business credit. Not Martin and his credit controllers, us as a business. This is how we do it. And of course, the reviews happens ad hoc as something happens and changes in your world. COVID hits you, and you were one of the lucky ones that could still be trading under COVID, not in the liquor industry or the cigarette industry that was totally frozen, but you could still trade. And therefore, it was critical for you to adapt immediately the way you do business. I wanted to labor on the topic. Today's 3 takeaways. Review on triggers, not just the calendar. Let your own data set the new numbers. Remember, don't say, yeah, but our opposition gives so many days terms. What is their margin? Do you know? Maybe they're making losses on their balance sheet. Do you know? Don't compare yourself with someone else. Look at the data that your business is showing you or giving you and make the decision according to that. Buy in from everyone else. Because company that is seen as one is already 50% a winning company. And that, my dear friends and colleagues and clients, is the end of my story. So, summary, you've got a credit policy and you haven't touched it in the last 6 months. So find it right now and read through it. Compare it with the data that you have right now on your company and say, do we need to review this policy? And go and stir the pot. Go find your CEO or go and find your CFO and say, our policy currently states this, and we are trading very far from that. We need to review our company credit policy.
Thank you, Amy. If you don't have one as well, then definitely we should get moving on that. But most importantly, it just tells everybody what to do when something happens. So there's no running around like headless chickens to say, oh no, this customer is 1 day late. What do I do? This customer is 30 days late. What do I do? This customer told me they're not going to pay us ever. What do I do? And so it just leaves that, what do I do at every point in time? So everyone that works within the company is on the same page and we all following the same set of rules. And that's really what the credit policy tells us. It's the policy of what do we do in this space. So thank you as always, Martin, for your insights and for your knowledge. And, we do appreciate it, and we appreciate everyone that's joined us today, as well as for your assistance in filling out both our 2 different polls as well as our NPS score. So we're asking a lot of everyone today, which is why we're giving you back your 10 minutes so that you can respond to all our polls and our NPSs. And, this is really just a way for us to understand, where do we go to next year? How do we give you more? How do we do better? And so that is what all of this information is for. So your feedback is hugely valuable to us, and it is read and taken into consideration. So please go ahead and give us that information. Otherwise, we will see you again if you are a TradeShield user on Tuesday with Neil, and if not, we'll see you on Thursday. Have a wonderful, lovely day.
Thank you. I need to
Join us every Thursday from 10 to 11.